This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV, the
News Free Dixie.
News Free Dixie for the 21st century.
Hello, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I also want to talk to you about ColIN Kaepernick, the situation in the NFL when they blackballing him. I mean, they signed Jay Cutler for crying out loud to the Dolphins when they could have got ColIN Kaepernick. It just bothers me. They doing blatant job discrimination. But I'll talk to you about the two topics.
Well, what bothered me is them putting Vick back in, a convicted federal felon, to start playing again. Of all things, dog fights.
Right. So I want to get there. Okay, we talk about that on the record then. Okay, so We All Be is honored to have on once again Judge Joe Brown in these troubling times. It's good to have a man with sound mind, spitting out his logic and wisdom to the masses. People are thoroughly enjoying Judge Joe Brown on the social internet and beyond. So I want to thank you once again, Judge, for joining our platform to express yourself. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, young brother. I'm glad to hear you are all in a good mood and ready to go.
All right, excellent. So I want to start off. I just want to talk about what's going on right now. The NFL season is coming up. A lot of things with the ColIN Kaepernick controversy. Him not being able to find a job or a place to play, although he had pretty good numbers last year. He took a team to a Super Bowl and almost won a couple of years ago. But he's having a hard time finding jobs. You got teams that will sign other players over him with subpar numbers and questionable track record of mediocrity. So, Judge, what are your thoughts about the ColIN Kaepernick situation in the NFL?
Make it a matter of economics. They seem to be worried about the young brother causing their fans to drop off. So perhaps we as black people can drop off and just boycott it. Anyway, NFL is one of those things that Caesar talked about 2,000 years ago when he was giving instructions on how to control ordinary people. He said, give them bread and circuses. Pane, donne pane et sertercier. In other words, feed them and entertain them. And the ladies get all caught up in some Housewives or another series, and the men get caught up in some kind of ball game. So perhaps we do ourselves a great favor if we just boycotted the NFL until they put him back in somewhere. We are fans too. I think we are as devoted a set of fans as any in the country. So if we boycotted the stuff, maybe they would feel it and say, no, we agree. There are things about this country that do not sit well with certain members of this country, to wit us, in the way we are treated. I mean, it's nothing new. That was something that happened back in the 60s and early 70s. Black folk wouldn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody in the stands would sit down. At some college games when there were predominantly black colleges involved, nobody played the thing. It's just like we're not getting a good break here. That's protest. That's First Amendment. And if NFL is supposed to be an American institution, they ought to encourage people taking advantage of the Constitution to express themselves. I mean, they could be doing what else they could be doing, which is out in the streets burning stuff down. So when somebody doesn't like something, then take heed of it, instead of trying to squash it by blackballing the man. So fans, stop being fans. For a while anyway. I know some brothers spend so much time on football and basketball that they don't know about, care about, or do much of anything else, which is why we've got such a problem in this country right now. We don't pay attention to the primary issues, which have to do with jobs, education, neighborhood and community safety, and prosperity. But anyway, that's just my thought.
But Judge, is it troubling the fact that this young man never got in trouble on on off the field. He never had an issue of domestic violence or drug problems or anything. He's been an outstanding citizen, and it's like he's being blackballed for more his personal political beliefs, more so than anything else.
That's it. And I noticed on one of the bobblehead news media outlets, they had Vick talking about ColIN Kaepernick needing to cut his hair, etc. It always struck me as the wrong message to send to the country if you were the NFL to rehire a convicted federal felon, convicted essentially of dog fighting and what turned out to be RICO activity. If you read the indictment, which I did, it's a long one. It's not very well written, and whoever wrote it should go back to the 10th grade and take English again. But in any event, there was a lot of interstate, cross-state lines activity. It was widespread gambling that was going on, and that's not something that the NFL should be associated with. But they hired him back, and they've got him up to run his ignorant mouth off talking about ColIN Kaepernick.
Well, actually, with the Vick case in particular, do you think he was overcharged, though? Was it a little bit excessive?
No.
Okay.
You should have read the indictment. They gave him a sweetheart deal. They set up surveillance, and they saw vehicles occupied by known members of organized crime drive up and park. They had search warrants. They went in and looked, found massive sums of cash, relocked the car, and then on surveillance video caught Vick and others coming in, opening the same car, removing the massive amounts of cash. They detailed all of the fixed gambling that was going on about which dog was going to lose and which was going to prevail, and this went on for quite some months. So they had a pretty good trail, and I was surprised that they let him plead out as he did.
See, that brings me up to another thing.
They look like they got him dead to rights on some much more serious stuff than got brought to the attention of the public. That is, if you read the indictments. Or the indictment.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, too, because it seems like it's interesting that the NFL, the people that are connected with the NFL, the black folks that are more vocal against Vick, like a Mike Vick, and then you got Ray Lewis. Cause I remember he got in trouble some years ago during the Super Bowl in Atlanta when two black men got killed, and he got out for it, but he's been one of the most vocal critics of Kaepernick, a guy who almost could have went to jail for life, but now he's in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's what's wrong with our so-called black leadership in the country. Too many of them who are put up as spokesmen have too many skeletons in their closets, so they get trotted out to negate those who are trying to make a viable point and don't have those skeletons.
And you know what's crazy, which is unfortunate. I really think it's unfortunate because even when Ali was in the trouble he was in, he did have some well-known black athletes come to his aid, like Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Jim Brown, and many others. But now you got people, they are speaking about, what's going on with ColIN Kaepernick, but they're few and far between. He could have got, for example, he had a chance to get hired by the Seattle Seahawks, would have probably been a perfect fit for him. But I don't think they were very vocal in trying to get him on, the Seattle Seahawks.
Look. The black athletes you have today are a far different cry than what you had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, they were trying to ram through slightly open doors that a few greats had opened for them. For all of these major sports, you have baseball, Jackie Robinson, you got NFL, you've got Kenny Washington. For NBA, you've got Don Barksdale. Kenny Washington was the first black to play in the NFL. That was with the Rams. Don Barksdale's the first black to play in the NBA, and that was with the Lakers. Jackie Robinson played with the the Brooklyn Dodgers, now LA Dodgers, now LA Rams, now LA Lakers. Interestingly enough, there's backstory to that. Magic Johnson, a great NBA player, has the financial control of the Dodgers, the Lakers, and the Rams. So it's interesting that the first three teams to hire black now are to a great extent controlled by somebody black. But in any event, those three brothers all played in the UCLA backfield back in the late 30s. They all made All-American football players. Kenny Washington was the quarterback, Jackie Robinson was the running back, and Don Barksdale was the wide receiver. So you get into, let's take Jackie Robinson. Now, all we know him for is baseball. But when he was a lieutenant, first lieutenant with the 761st Armored Battalion, probably the second most highest decorated U.S. Army unit in our history, he was in the Texas town in a Texas town where the base was located. He had escorted an officer's wife home, taking a taxi, and then decided to take the bus back to the base. They told him to move to the back of the bus. Well, he had his 1911 on his hip, loaded with extra magazines, and when they told him to move to the back, he told them to go to hell. He would not. And there was a Mexican standoff with Jackie Robinson with his .45 in his hand, according to witnesses, saying somebody's going to die tonight besides me.
Wow.
So his commanding officer kept him from being court-martialed, but the Army transferred him to another unit. They had a 2-week-long trial. He got acquitted. He had hurt his ankle playing football and waived that as physical injury that would have disqualified him from service since he was an officer. So they had to let him out. So he went and played for the Negro Leagues for a short time. They got him with the Dodgers, and there you go. But you see, you don't hear about that part of Jackie Robinson's character where he says, hell no, I'm not going to the back of the bus, and he's not being nonviolent. He's got his .45 ready to deal.
Wow.
That kind of thing is what the old athletes used to be. Kenny Washington was like that, so was Don Barksdale.
You know, I
know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He and I were classmates at UCLA. Anytime we had to make a move on something, Big Lou, as we called him then, was right there with us. So was Mike Warren and Lucius Allen and the rest of the basketball team. They didn't hide out trying, so I can't jeopardize my lucrative professional sports career. They were right there in the mix. Everybody got arrested, got out of jail, got back into the mix again. And when it was time to be counted, they were there to be counted. See, these guys come out right now, and they're so doggone mama's boy types, they just don't get it. And I did not like it that, you know, you trot these Negroes out who have bad rap sheets, so to speak, who are questionable in character, and then you use them to badmouth somebody that's really trying to push for what somebody needs to have the balls to push. So I'm saying we don't need to watch the sports. They are a distraction for what we ought to be paying attention to. So when somebody in these sports decides to take the opportunity to remind us that everything ain't all right, then we need to back them up. We don't need to watch an NFL game for the rest of the year. And go read a damn book and learn something. Or go get active in something. You know, that's what we need to do.
I know, and I think a lot of people will agree with you, Judge, and why they love to hear you, because you speak the truth, your truth, without any filters. And also I want to add with Jackie Robinson, a lot of people don't know that it was Joe Louis, the boxing champion, They got him to officer training program. They wouldn't let him in. Then Joe Lewis
No,
co-signed for him.
that is what happened. That is not what happened. That's a myth.
That's a myth. I heard in the documentary on PBS, so it's not true.
Well, that's PBS. What the reality was is Jackie Robinson went to UCLA. They had an ROTC program there, the same one I went through. They had a scholarship available, several, for those who were qualified for it. He got one. He went through UCLA's ROTC program. He was brigade commander, just like I was. And when the war started, he went with the 10th Cavalry, a.k.a. Buffalo Soldiers, and then transferred to the 761st Armored Battalion. As a matter of fact, there's an excellent book written by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is a historian and a writer. And it details Jackie Robinson's coming out of the same school that Kareem came out of, UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we had Mayor Tom Bradley of Los Angeles came out of that. Flojo, and we had a lot of people came out of that place. So, interestingly enough, we used to be known as the place where a black man could get a high-level education, and they always had teams with a lot of black folk on it.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got there in 1965, they had 60-some thousand full-time students. They had 72 full-time black undergrads, including us, and 73 full-time black grad students for 145 out of 60-plus thousand. And on the football team, they had 3 black folk.
Mm.
So that's how far down it had dropped. And there was a point in there in the last 15 years where UCLA only had 1 entering black freshman. And that's a public institution. But you see, when I was there, we all organized and said, hell, we got a lot to lose, but we've got a lot we are obligated to do. So a lot of us put it on the line and risk our future careers. And from 145 blacks in there, including the grad students, in 2 years, we got in 250 undergrads for 1967, and then 250 more for 1968. Everything was good until 68, and then we started getting that craven kind that you get right now that represents so much of so-called black leadership. They're going, I'm sorry, brother. I appreciate all of the sacrifices that you guys have made to get me in here, but I can't afford to jeopardize my career. Go on without me, and I'll be there in spirit. Grab that fool. And I remember one idiot now dead who made a whole lot to do that he was involved with BSU, was so scared. One of us on each side holding him. He had on some gray pants, and they had a dark stain on the left side and a pool of urine at his feet because he peed on himself. He was so scared.
Wow.
But see, it's a different day.
I want to actually.
Everybody's asking about what to be done. It's called having some balls, some cojones, having some testosterone flowing in your veins and acting like you are a man instead of some kind of sissy running around talking about you have to be too damn nice. Why I call it the talented 10th. Those educated, intelligent blacks who will bootstrap up the rest of the race by whatever means is necessary. So I'm offended. I'm an old man. Well, not literally, but basically, yeah. And I get people 18, 19, 20, and go, Judge, what should we do? Why the hell are you asking me? You ought to be scaring the devil out of me with your militancy. But you're not. And I can remember a spate through the last 15 years. I was going to historically black colleges, universities, and speaking, and there wouldn't be but 25% of the student body are male black, and only half of them were straight, you know? And nobody got the cojones to sit up and say, hell no, this is wrong. Well, a few, but, you know, like, we need to man up is what one of the problems is, which is why I'm putting out that campaign, first Monday every month. Man up, man time, man power, man thing, man to the forefront. You know, we have to start exercising our leadership, our drive, our acumen needs to be brought to bear on the problem, and we need to be men to make where we live safe places, prosperous places, with economic development, some sense of morality and ethics, and move things on. We've let our neighborhoods become matriarchs. The distaff side is running things where we live, not men. Family's gone to hell, and we've let major society put this filth that they put on TV all the time, glorifying this dysfunction. For example, Beyonce's a married woman, but do you see anybody letting you know that? They try to make it like she's a glorious single mother again. You know, the Williams sister is a married woman, but they want to act like she's a single woman. You know, women, you should be married before you have babies. One time's an accident, I can understand that. Multiple occasions, something's wrong with your compass. Get a man. It might help if you started worrying about what you were doing in terms of, am I going to be a fit mother? Am I worrying about what I need to learn? What if I have a son? Will I be able to get man training for him? Is the man I'm with, if he is a man, somebody just going to give somebody man training? See, we have to have all of these things in mind. Yes, brothers, take care of your children. But beware you don't get trapped into a paternity situation by somebody you know you don't want to pay any mind to and want to get as far away from, other than just having lain with her to satisfy your passions. Watch who you sleep with. Make it a rule never to get caught with some woman that you wouldn't be willing to be seen with at high noon in the middle of Main Street with all your friends looking.
Good advice.
And that's to the brothers, because that's our job. The NFL is a thing that men watch. But we need to stop watching it, because there's one young brother that's got a whole lot more balls than most of the people watching him. And not because he's a football player, but by doing something every single viewer can do, acting like a man and taking a stand when it counts. I just heard somebody in the restaurant, man, it's cold with the Kaepernick, man. Yeah, man. But, man, what do you think's going to happen with the game, man? Blah, 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 blah. Shouldn't be saying that. Say, I know, what are we going to do, man? Let's go to the park or something, man. Maybe we can hang out, you know, and talk about politics, man. Brother brought up a good point. Instead of debating on which game you want to watch, that you send all this money to Dish TV, Direct TV, Comcast, so you can get all the games. That's a little rant, I suppose, but it is what it is.
Well, I think you got your hand on the pulse, your finger on the pulse of the times right now. Because when I'm hearing you talking, I talked to you before. You always talk about the lack of black leadership, and it's funny to me that so many people will compare the times we're living in to the '60s, and I always got to correct them. I said, number one, in the '60s, you had a booming historic economy that was expanding. It means that if you dropped out of high school, you still get a good paying job at the factory, support a family of four. And then also you had a strong national black leadership class. You had the Kwame Tories, you had SNCC, you had Dr. King. You had so many black activists in and outside the institutions that were making noise. Like Stokely said, every time they had a riot, they brought more money into the hood for programs. So I'm saying, like, where is that national black leadership that you talk about? We have no Stokeleys. We have no Dr. Kings. We have no Malcolms. We have no SNCC. We have nobody right now.
Yeah, and let's put it this way. We also need to make a distinction between so-called black leadership that consists of a group of people that aren't really black leaders. They've just been chosen by the white power structure to become spokesmen for a pacification message to be delivered to us.
Mm-hmm. Are you referring to like Black Lives Matter, for example?
Yes, that. I'm also referring to some of the black hawking bobbleheads you see on TV quite often. They're not our leaders. They don't go out in the neighborhoods. They can't rally anybody. And sometimes some of them put out a good message, but most of the time, most of them are putting out a message of pacification or downing those who make the white structure feel nervous about telling us what's really going on.
Wow. So, I mean, what can we do right now? I know, like, the Black Lives Matter, for example, it reminded me of a speech that Malcolm did back in November of '63 called A Message to the Grassroots up in Detroit. And he talked about how the March on Washington was a farce on Washington, how the white leadership, the white liberal leadership from the Kennedy administration actually selected the leaders, the Negro leadership, the Big Six, Dr. King and all them, to lead the march, but they really were pulling the strings. And he basically laid it down.
That's exactly what I was referring to.
Okay.
Malcolm is a prophet in many ways about our experience.
Mm-hmm.
And what he said needs repeating. It doesn't need to be expanded on because truth is truth whenever it was spoken.
And also he criticized, he was at UC Berkeley on a talk show, which is online as well, and he said that the Negro race is the only race of people that need entertainers as leaders. No other race need entertainers as leaders. You don't look at your entertainers as being leaders. But we do.
Yeah. Well, see, white folk have fallen into that trap. Look at St. Ron the Reagan.
Yeah, that's a good example. Okay, you're right.
Look at Tennessee. You got Fred Thompson, the actor.
Right.
Senator, United States Senator. See, in other words, what the deal is with them, they're doing a different thing. You don't need a real live ego to be in charge. You get an actor and you write a script, and the actor can play the script. He can play a gay musician. He can play a gangster. He can play, a college professor and convince you in the dramatic performance that he is what those things are. So if you get an actor to be the politician, you only need to get somebody to write a script. You see, and there is this thing that the white people are pushing to maintain behind the scenes control. They're trying to get chick flick matinee stars to be the out front somebody. We need youth. No, we don't need youth. We need some experience. And the youth needs to pay its dues and start raising enough hell to be worth something. But you see, it's like right now, the Democratic Party ought to be staunchly behind Bernie Sanders. It's only 11 more months before all of this stuff for the 2020 presidential campaign will kick off. And if you want to depose Trump, you need to get behind Sanders. However, the DNC is pushing all of these little backwater idiots, as new as improved, because they're photogenic, or because they appeal to women, or because they appeal to a youth market. And that is absolutely ridiculous.
Wow.
So if you want to get rid of Trump, get Bernie Sanders. The polls show he could win, but they want to get new and improved because it matches some little screwed up ideology. And the big danger is our neighborhoods have become matriarchies, and now they want the whole country to become feminist dominated, which is not a good thing. I have nothing against women being paid the same as anybody else for doing the same work. I have nothing against women becoming professionals involved in STEM or whatever it may be. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But right now, we need effective leadership who's got experience, knows what the devil is going on, what strings to pull where the skeletons and the graveyards are.
Yes, sir.
There's a certain female black U.S. senator that every time she tries to pull off a number on the colleagues she has to deal with and they shush her, she's always appealing, women, we need to stand firm. Men, my male colleagues shushed me. We must overcome them. No, that's what your job is. You need to be able to handle it yourself. And meanwhile, listening to you, I get the impression, you were in a situation where you got deferred to because somebody protected you because you were cute. Doesn't work like that in the real world. And I'll say this too, I won't mention the name right now, but you know me. You can trust me, I think, if you feel that way. I don't try to mislead you. I don't try to sugarcoat it. But let me give you a word of wisdom. Do not trust a career prosecutor. It's okay to have been a prosecutor, but if you haven't done anything else in life but that, you can't be trusted. So if anybody out there has been a career prosecutor until they got the job next preceding the next one they want, you stay clear of them. And I'll say this, it's got to do with this old proverb, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And too many career prosecutors have been wielding too much power not to have gotten corrupted. And they're in things without concern for the human element, unless perhaps it's expedient for their immediate objective. If it's a career prosecutor, you tell them to go to hell, go do something in the real world for a long time first to cleanse that poison out of your system. I'll say that.
Wow.
And when you look at these criminal court judges in Shelby County, Tennessee, there's one exception, and I'll give you that. That person's name is Jim Beasley. He's white. And for the rest of the other 9 criminal court judges, look at them and you ask, have you ever done any criminal defense work? And have you actually dealt with people and not just done appellate work? See, I was in Division 9. I got replaced by J.C. McLean. The current incumbent doesn't give much of a damn about black lives. So if you want to see who you need to vote for next election and you're in Shelby County, pay attention to these judges. They're the most important offices on the ballot. Not mayor, not congressman, not U.S. senator, not state senator, not state representative, not county commissioner, not city councilman, because they can't put you in jail, they can't let you out. They don't back up a campaign by the local DA's office and the juvenile court to ruin black lives or those of poor whites. And see, speaking of something, on the serious side, the Census Bureau of the United States is indicating that in about 2.5 decades, white people will no longer be the majority race in the country. They will be a minority. And it behooves us to start setting up some alliances right now, since we are no longer the largest minority in the country. Look at the Hispanics in your area. We need to set up some alliances with them. The youth need to stop killing each other on the basis of he's Latino or he's black. Latino and Afro need to be working together. See, in Shelby County, for example, 35+% local population is classified as Latino. but you don't see them. You don't pay attention, but they're there. And we need to set up a coalition. So we need to start thinking. And by the way, if you want to think, pay attention to the things you need to think about rather than getting distracted a la Julius Caesar with circuses, aka NFL football, NBA basketball, college basketball, college football. Pay attention to what the devil's going on. That deals with whether or not you can afford the notes on that TV set, your car note, take care of your kids, maybe spend some time with them trying to get their heads together so they can get the education they need to deal with tomorrow's world, which is going to be based on very intensive industrial technology and computerization. We've got a lot of stuff to do.
But you know what?
We don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, with the Kamala Harris situation, I started to learn more about her after you talked on.
You guessed who I was talking about.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. It's like it's Obama 2.0. It's Obama 2, Obama Light. Basically, you know, I read somewhere where her aunt, her mom is from the country of India, and her father is a black man from Jamaica. So this is another deception about her. Like, even though she's an AKA and went to Howard University, she's not really a black person descended from enslaved Africans. We have yet to have somebody in office who really comes from our narrative as black Americans.
And if you're a prosecutor, damn it, then do something about changing this dynamic. Do some positive social engineering.
Right.
Not just I put all these people from South Central LA in the penitentiary.
Yeah, and so
I grew up there, and I've got practice out there.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I've got, you walk in and you try to play that little cute role, and you start getting out of hand, and the other side, the defense, starts getting on your behind, and the judges protect you so you can continue to be there. Yeah, I don't appreciate this. Defense is, and start acting like, and I'll give you a classic example. You saw the OJ trial, or you can get it so you can look at the stuff. Look at Marcia Clark and Darty.
Mm-hmm.
Darty is an embarrassment as a black man, up there crying and carrying on, so personally involved in that railroad job they were trying to pull on the man. They didn't have the right man for that case on trial. And then his colleague, Marcia Clark, was just an embarrassment. Over-emotional, overwrought, trying to be snippy, rude, and crude. She turned the jury off after the first 10 minutes of the case. But see, that's that kind of thing that some of them get away with. So, forget Kamala Harris. We need to deal with Bernie Sanders so we can get some relief. We need free higher education. When I went to UCLA, we had no tuition. You went to the University of California, any of the many campuses, you had no tuition. You went to the state college, now State University, you had no tuition. You went to a junior college, you had no tuition. We didn't get that until that SOB Ron Reagan got in office in 1968. Then he started racking that cost up until it got outrageous. Because he campaigned on the agenda of getting rid of free higher education. He said too many people use it to try and change the country. That's exactly what the purpose of it is. He was an actor reading a bloody script.
Wow.
With an agenda of keeping everybody else under control.
Judge, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. You've got a point you're trying to get me to make, so let me shut up and hear what it is.
No. I just when you said that about Ronald Reagan and how it changed the dynamics of college education and a lot of issues people dealing with student debt, student loan debt. And I had a chance to talk to one of Fred Hampton's friend who is a lawyer. named Jeffrey Haas, a Jewish guy from Atlanta who went to the University of Chicago, ended up starting the People's Law Office because he was inspired by Fred Hampton. He said the reason why he was able to get into this social justice work when he was a young man is because he went to college debt free. He didn't have to worry about student loans paying back. So this is like an obstacle for a lot of people, young people today, that they can't get involved with that work to help to create a black leadership, a national black leadership, because they got to pay off student loan debt.
Yeah, well, see, that's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to pay anything back as an undergrad, but by the time I got to law school, St. Ronald Reagan was doing his nasty, perverted thing, and here we go. I had a long time. It took me a long time to pay off the national debt. I just used to dodge it for a while, not the national debt.
It seems like it, though, does it?
Yeah, I know. But I used to just tell them when they'd call to collect, look, excuse me, I am just spending the reasonable interest compounded semi-annually on 40 acres and one goddamn mule.
Wow.
You know, I wound up settling and paid off a lot less than I owed. But, you know, I stretched that out as long as I could. That was onerous.
Mm.
And it's ridiculous because, you see, when the society sends its kids to school, that's the whole thing behind public school in kindergarten through high school, and it should be through college, is you're investing in your human infrastructure.
Yes, yes.
And it's not an instruction on who, what, when, and where like you get in primary school. It's an instruction on how do you think, not what you think, but how do you go about the cognitive process of thinking something through rationally, logically, reasonably, and analytically. So you can assimilate facts and information and come up with legitimate conclusions. See, that's the kind of thing that people need to go to college for. They don't pay you for what you've learned. They pay you for how you think. You know, think outside box. That's what they do.